Thank you for joining us today. My name is, oh, I'm gonna put that over there. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jessica Reynolds. I'm the Director of the Office of Downtown Development at the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. And we have invited a special guest to join us for Preservation Month, Miss Lee Burns.
Hey y'all, happy Preservation Month.
Who is the director of the Fox Theater Institute, and we're going to learn all about them today. And some of you may know Lee from her past experience working for the state of Georgia, also with the Office of Downtown Development and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. So we are so happy to have her today, and she's been doing some really great stuff over at the Fox Theater Institute. So proud to have her over there. So great for our programs to have, a liaison, over there who really gets it and who already knows our communities and has those established relationships with them. So with that being said, Lee, I'm just going to turn it over to you and
Thanks,
let you
Jessica.
talk about all the good stuff you've been doing.
Awesome. It feels so good to be back and with you guys on a webinar. I've really missed the Main Street family and just happy to be back. So I really appreciate this opportunity that Jessica gave me today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Fox Theater Institute has been up to. As you all remember, I transitioned and went over there last summer, and we've been working on a lot of programs, and I'm just going to go ahead and get right into this. Some of you may not realize that the Fox Theater Institute, that our funding actually comes from ticket sales at the Fox Theater, as well as limited grant funding that we receive through other organizations, both in Atlanta and statewide. And as far as staffing goes, we currently have 5 staff, including 2 professionals who work exclusively in restoration of the Fox, and 2 working in outreach with me day to day. FTI also oversees the daily restoration of the Fox Theater in addition to the outreach program. So we're kind of a twofold institute. We do our in-house preservation at the Fox, and we also do our outreach. I'm going to go right in and just kind of give you an overview of some of the outreach programs. There's a few I think that y'all may not be aware of, and they may impact your cities and counties in ways that you didn't know. We have a Fox in the Box program, which is an outreach educational program. This past fiscal year, we visited over 7,900 students and adults in 38 locations, mostly in the metro, but some outlying counties. We successfully launched the K through 2nd grade curriculum this past year, and have been working exclusively kind of building that curriculum. We have 6,000 students confirmed for next year's fiscal year. And the way that we fund this program is not just our own ticket sales and what we generate through F&B and all kinds of other ways at the Fox, but we also go after grants ourselves. So last year we were lucky enough to get a $7,000 grant from Georgia Council for the Arts, $5,000 from Fulton County Arts Council, and $9,000 from the City of Atlanta's Office of Cultural Affairs. And I really wanted to bring that up just to highlight that these are some resources that if you work locally with your theaters and other school programs and arts programs, that you might be able to go after some of that funding as well with them. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to light. We also, just this past year, rolled out beta testing for our in-house school tours. We worked with Green Forest Academy 3rd through 5th graders. They visited the Fox on Monday, April 30th. That was the first time ever we'd had a formal kind of in-house school program. They completed a pre-tour activity at their school before they came. They had a scavenger hunt at the Fox, and they also do a post-tour activity at their school. And you can see these beautiful photos of the kids enjoying our home here in Atlanta. We also have a Friends of the Fox program where we invite members to join the Fox and be a friend. We have 183 active members. We raised over $120,000 last year, and we have great special events throughout the year. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in becoming a Friend of the Fox, those memberships that are all levels, and they do give you kind of special behind the scenes access to the Fox Theater. Also, many of you know folks that you work with in your local main streets through your theater that are part of Georgia Presenters. Jessica and when Billy and I were here all together, we did do some stuff with Georgia Presenters, some networking and programming. The thing that's nice about Georgia Presenters is it's a FTI program, but it's a statewide booking consortium, and they provide a vehicle for collective programming. So for theaters and communities, they can work together for cultural opportunities and in their own communities. We have 44 active members throughout the state, and we have 2 block booking meetings a year and a summer retreat each year. The Fox Theater funds block booking grants each year for members. So if you're a member of this consortium and you decide to go in with another theater in your region, oftentimes the Fox Theater will fund your actual block booking so you can have a discount on getting those artists in your community. So that's something that if you're not aware of, I would encourage you to get with your local theater director and cultural arts center and find out if they're networked. I know in Jessica's community in Carrollton that Tim Chapman is a longtime member and supporter of Georgia Presenters, and we really rely on those relationships to kind of not only really make sure that we're doing the best community outreach we can with preservation, but we're getting as much talent that you all want in your communities that increases economic development. So if you're interested in Georgia Presenters, you can go online to learn more. So I think the major thing that probably most of you probably want to know about are our grants. And you know, when I went over to work with FTI last year, what was really so dynamic about the opportunity is the Fox Theater, we give out $500,000 statewide for grants every year to historic theaters and cultural institutions all over Georgia. And it is quite impactful. And today I'm going to talk about some of the different grant programs that we have. The first program are FTI preservation grants, and these grants are awarded annually. They can secure engineering and architectural team members to provide final planning and budgets for your theaters and cultural centers, for completing an overall preservation project or repurposing of a related structure, either a phase or other important improvements according to study or planning processes. So that can include buildings that are adjacent to the theater, planning for those, and preservation. Also, we have never funded for this, but we do have funds available for acquisition of historic properties or related properties. And that's not something in the past that we've awarded, and mostly because we have not had to ask up to date. But I think it's really innovative that FTI kind of set aside that we could use those funds. It's very rare in preservation that you see any funding that's outright for the purchase of a building. So that's kind of exciting. Also, acquisition of real property or construction. The project can include the renovation, alteration of a property, and this must comply with Section 504 of the 1974 Rehabilitation Act and the 1990 American with Disabilities Act. I want to just mention that if you have a historic theater or cultural center in your Main Street community that is not ADA compliant, if it's not supporting those uses, this is a great opportunity for you to come to us and look at how you can get that funding. As you know, these are matching grants, but there's a lot of times that, you know, these projects kind of get put off, and I just want you to be mindful that we have this money that's available for these projects. So if you have interest in working with your theater and cultural arts center operators, please let them know and be aware of this. Also, the purchase and installation of equipment such as assistive listening, access, seating, listening devices, staging, sound equipment, lighting equipment, and projection systems that will expand accessibility and availability of programming. So at the Fox Theater, of course, we have devices available for people with that need hearing support, and we hope that you offer those at your own theaters and cultural centers. But if you don't, there is money available for that through FTI, just to keep that in mind. Applicants may apply for grants starting at $50,000 to upwards of $250,000. You know, you can apply for less, but you can start at $50,000. These can be multi-phase projects that you can apply for funding, and you can do that for 3 consecutive years, not to exceed $500,000 during the 3-year period. So if you want to start in phase 1 and go through phase 3, that is possible. Organizations receiving funding of $250,000 or above are not eligible to reapply for 3 years. So if in your first year, and And to date, we have not given a $250,000 grant right off the bat, but if we did, you would have to hold back and not apply for 3 years. But at the end of that 3rd year cycle, you could apply. Reapplication may only be made for a new project, however, that demonstrates its importance or benefits beyond the achievements of that first earlier project. So just to keep that in mind, it's so important to have planning documents, phasing documents that support the big picture of what you're trying to do and figure out how to phase those. The following criteria will be used to evaluate and rank applications for preservation grant funds. So these are important things to remember when you submit a preservation grant to FTI. The historical significance of the resource, obviously, the physical condition of the property. Is it blighted? Is it demolition by neglect? Those kind of things. The proposed use of the site and the quality of the interpretive program that goes along with this historic resource. The quality of preliminary planning or contract documents, including credentials of the project team, feasibility of the budget and work schedule. So this is really important for us to see, again, that if you're going into a full-on bricks and mortar project, that you've done the preemptive work, that you have the right partners at the table, that you've done everything you can to make sure that when you actually start the work, it's going to go according to plan. This is really important when our team, when our grant review committee look at your application. Also, the appropriateness of the project to meet the needs of the resource. Is what you're proposing sensitive to the resource? Is it something that you've had the right architects engaged and the right contractors? The ability of the applicant to match the funds requested and to complete the proposed work, to maintain the property, administer the grant funds, and develop programs to sustain and interpret the property. So by this, what we really mean is we need a solid match. It's a 50-50 match. It does have to be a cash match. It cannot be an in-kind match. We have to see that when you apply. Also, we need to know what you're going to do when you use our funding. How are you going to maintain this repair or this new construction or this infill? How are you going to work as a team to make that happen? And who's going to administer the grant funds? One of our most popular projects right now is the conversion to LED lighting, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things that's exciting about LED conversion is the money that you save often through LED conversion, you can put that back into other, appropriate ways of preserving historic material through plaster repair, through brick cleaning, those kind of things. So those are kind of neat developments with us through the FTI preservation grants. These were our grants that were awarded this past year, and I highlighted for y'all which are in Main Street communities. As you can see, the majority are in Main Street communities. The Averett Center for the Arts in Statesboro, Colquitt County Arts Center in Moultrie, the Dixie Theater down in Swainsboro, Imperial in Augusta, the Madison Morgan Cultural Center in Madison, Seven Stages Theater here in Atlanta, Tiff Theater in Tifton, and the Winterville Theater in Winterville. So these were the total amount, $335,991 for preservation grants statewide. These are just some highlights of some of our grants. This is from Seven Stages. What they did was they worked on restoring their marquee, and they completed necessary HVAC and system repairs to their theater. This is Colquitt County Arts Center in Moultrie. We funded the upgrade of the historic theater's light and sound equipment, and it was to enhance the patron experience. A shout out to our friends down in Moultrie. This is a wonderful resource. Not only is it a theater, but it's a wonderful place for children and adults and people of all ages to take classes. We also funded the Dixie Theater, Hadel and Brinson down in Swainsboro, a lot of old friends, and when these projects, the grant will allow for repairs to the stucco and historic plaster and the window and door installation, as well as other important rehabilitation steps in their long-term commitment to preserving their community landmarks. So what we're excited for in Swainsboro, obviously, is the kind of economic development that's going to come out of this project. And finally, the Imperial Theater over in Augusta. I don't know if you all guys have had a chance over the years to go to the Imperial, but they're getting ready to celebrate their 100th birthday. It's an absolutely beautiful theater on Broad Street in downtown Augusta. But they use the money for some historic plaster repair within the interior, and you can see the important features in the middle. And yeah, this requires a great deal of skill, and this was a wonderful investment for us to enter into with the Imperial. I'm going to switch gears and talk about technical assistance grants a little. This is another category of our grants at FTI. These are to enable awardees direct access to experts in the field and to other resources in order to meet a range of specific technical, organizational, or operational needs. But they're not limited to planning, professional development, organizational development, and developing partnerships and community programs. So this is also a new category of funding for FTI. You know, up until when I came on board, they were really doing straight up bricks and mortar type funding, but this is a category which has been expanded by the board. It can also provide for business planning and operations towards sustainability, developing leadership and effectiveness of staff and board members. That can be training, it can be technological, and then of course guidance on technology for the operation of the theater. So this is a pretty broad category, and this also is one of the only 2 non-matching grants that we have. Our urgent emergency fund grants and our technical assistance grants do not require a match. This is the Grand Opera House. Oh, I think I've messed up, Jessica. Let's see here. Sorry, y'all. Let's go back. There we are. This is the Grand Opera House down in Macon. Another shout out to Main Street. The Grand Opera House Theater is conducting a historic assets study to explore the venue's second balcony. It's an intact historic African American seating section to see if it could be expanded. And if it can be expanded, it would turn the Grand Opera House into an over 1,200 seat venue. We did fund 23,500 non-matching funds to the Grand Opera House. The third category I'll talk about today are our historic structure study and planning grants. Those are awarded also on an annual basis to support the completion of historic structure studies or planning that are always the first steps in the care of historic structures. So you all know that have been around me for a while, we've been preaching forever the preemptive work that you do with bricks and mortar projects, the planning. And this is really important not only to meeting the Secretary of the Interior standards for the National Park Service, but really the whole basis of preservation planning. And the Institute can also provide guidance on how to implement the study or planning process and where and how to secure that expertise. Also, obtaining a professional contractor or team to review the overall conditions of the structure, followed by presenting priorities and steps for planning. So helping you really kind of see how you should go into this work and what's the most logical approach. Also, retaining expertise in specific areas for study, such as architecture, engineering, paint analysis, archives and other collections, as well as interpretation, community use, and potential cultural and economic impact. So that's something that ties directly into your Main Street objectives, how you can use these grants and these opportunities to kind of project the economic impact that, you know, sustaining your historic theater and cultural center might bring. You can also use these funds for hiring a preservation architect to create an interior or exterior restoration plan. Hiring a consultant to develop a conservation plan for archives and collections. This is really important as you know, stewards of a historic property, not just that we maintain the property itself, but all the records of the property and the archives collections. And then also planning for renovations or repurposing of related structures that maybe are not necessarily historic. So we will fund the planning of those structures associated with the operation. This past year, the total amount awarded for historic structure studies and planning grants was $54,275. Festival Hall in Greensboro received funding, Grove Theater in Atlanta, Habersham in Clarksville, and Royal Theater in Hogansville. As you can see, 2 of the 4 Main Street communities, and we congratulate them. Festival Hall, I'm going to highlight in Greensboro. FTI, the Those funds secured consulting services to assess and support necessary additional space planning for the historic auditorium. Festival Hall had also previously received from FTI an urgent emergency grant fund. The Grove Theater in Atlanta that we'll be visiting later this month, the theater is a part of a large development project of the Grove Park Foundation for the City of Atlanta. And FTI funds will support the services of specialized historic preservation architectural firm to perform feasibility study for the Grove Theater. So if you see the photo on the left, this is a theater that was a pawn shop until the end of 2017.
Yeah.
It was purchased by the Grove Park Foundation, and I know as well that they've been working with Carmine and Julian over in Athens to look at some larger kind of planning goals for the community, and this is a rendering that was produced to kind of show you what it could be. This is just on the west side of Atlanta, if you're familiar with the Proctor Creek area, near the West Side Trail of the Beltline. So this is a really exciting project for FTI.
Absolutely.
The Habersham Community Theater, hello to our friends up in Clarksville. The grant funding will fund an architectural study to determine the repairs needed to restore their historic marquee. Additionally, the study will identify needed stucco repairs for the facade restoration. So we're really excited to work with Clarksville. The Royal Theater down in Hogansville, this FTI grant, it really moved forward with architectural planning to support ongoing preservation efforts. And even though some of you who are in the region may know this theater, this was an interesting project years ago where a historic theater was turned into City Hall in West Georgia, and they wanted to look at the idea of turning it back into a theater and what that would encompass and the costs and the feasibility and the structural things. And so they came to us, we funded this grant, and they have made the decision now based on the recommendations of the firm as well as the support of city and council to return that back to a theater. So it's really exciting for this community.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about our urgent emergency fund grants. A lot of folks reach out to me throughout the year wanting to know more about what qualifies, and I want to talk for a little bit about that. Our urgent or emergency support is available to historic theaters and related structures in emergency situations when immediate and unanticipated work is needed to save that resource. So examples of that for us include fire or water damage, natural disasters, especially, unfortunately, as we've had here in Georgia with tornadoes and hurricanes, general disrepair posing an immediate threat to the structure or architectural integrity, imminent demolition, and an option to purchase a structure, temporary or long-term, especially if a structural change or possible demolition are evident. This is an interesting use of our funds. These grants can range up to $50,000. This summer we did award a grant up in Rome to the DeSoto Theater to look at strengthening their fire protection systems. A cash match is not required for these projects. However, a grant award from the Institute could be used as leverage for other support. So you can actually use what we give you as leverage if you get a larger grant, which is pretty exciting. I will go back, this is the Telfair Center for the Arts down in McRae, Helena. We've been working with them. They received an urgent historic emergency grant fund. And then, as I said, the DeSoto, these are not demolition by neglect grants. These are very specific to events that have happened. So a lot of times I'll get a call from someone who has had a boarded up theater that the city or county has been aware of, that the property owner's been aware of, that they're not maintaining. This isn't something that FTI sees as a way to really kind of address demolition by neglect. It's more natural disaster, things that occur in communities that we can step in. I'm going to give you an example down in Albany. We worked with Theater Albany. Their award helped complete repairs to the historic facade of the building. It was damaged by those tornadoes that were just horrible and ravaged through southwest Georgia in 2017. The middle photo that you see, the columns had to be completely redone and repaired, as well as Foundation. This was quite an undertaking. It was a $35,000 emergency grant. And, for us, this was something that if we had not kind of stepped in and supported, they would not have been able to continue use safely of the building. So this is a good example of those urgent emergency funds. Also, I want to just kind of give you a heads up about the grant timeline so you'll know kind of where things are. On June 1st, 2018, our application will go live at foxtheater.org. On August 15th, 2018, all applications for all categories of grants have to be postmarked and submitted to the Fox Theater Institute. Those are done by mail through regular old U.S. mail. We have not converted yet to online. And if you are considering applying, with your theater that you work with, I would say go ahead and get ready to look at bids, at estimates, at getting your ducks in a row. This comes up fast, as you know, in the summer. By September of 2018, we do have a grant committee that meets. It's about 5 professionals from all over the state of Georgia. We have a representative from the Georgia Department of Community Affairs on the committee. We meet and go through the applications and we discuss them. And then eventually, hopefully on the earlier side of November to late October, we'll have decisions announced. So that's kind of the way the grants go for the year. We do have grant workshops coming up. And I'd like to say, a big thank you to our partners in Macon at the Grand Opera House for hosting us on June 14th. Not only will I be giving a session about the grants, but Susan Long, who is a well-known grant writer in the region, will join us, and we'll have an optional tour of the Grand Opera House. Registration is online at foxtheater.org. We would love to have you join us. If you have a theater in your community, please invite the person who administers the grants, who supports the grants, come together. And then we'll also have one for the northern part of the state at the Fox Theater on June 28th. We'll have a special session. Many of you know Tina Lilly with the Georgia Council for the Arts. She'll be doing a special session. Those special sessions will really be about how to be a better grant writer, how to find grants, how to secure grants, and how to kind of get your community supportive around really engaging with everyone they know to make granting more of a community-wide effort versus something that falls responsibly on you and the people that administer these great theaters and cultural resources. So even if you're not, I would say, the person who would write the grant, I think it would be beneficial for you to come learn more about grants in general. And I'm sure Jessica, I can speak for her and say she'll give training credit.
Oh yeah,
for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we would love to have you both either on the June 14th in Macon or on June 28th with me at the fabulous Fox Theater. And then when I thought about this session, I really wanted to kind of give some thought to ways that you all as Main Street managers could work directly with your theater or cultural centers to support them, and not only by supporting them, support Main Street. So there were some things that I came up with talking with our staff and thinking about working with you all over the past 12, 15 years in local government. One thing is I would consider hosting a training or a board meeting at your historic theater. And as you know, Jessica and Tommy and everyone who works at Main Street has always really tried to host our events in historic venues. And I would encourage you all, when you have your own trainings locally or board meetings, to maybe move those around and have one at your historic theater. Possibly work with your historic theater on a program during National Historic Preservation Month. If, this year you did something with another group, consider next year opening it up to working with your historic theater. Perhaps purchasing an advertisement in your theater's program promoting Main Street. These are really reasonable ways to advertise what you're doing in your community. So approaching the person at the theater who's over this and saying, listen, can we get an ad in your playbill next season? And if we run it all season, what can we do? Also attend events regionally at the state capitol to support funding for the arts and historic theaters. So when your historic theater operators come up for Georgia Arts Day at the Capitol, please come with them, show their support. There is power in numbers, and I think that that would be a great opportunity. Encourage your Main Street restaurant owners to offer a special for theater attendees before and after performances. So dinner and theater, if you know that, your theater is going to have, a certain level of programming that people are going to come from regionally, see if your Main Street restaurants will offer a discount or a special price fix menu or some way that you can help promote that theater. Help your historic theater staff with a grant application by writing a letter of support. It's such a simple thing to do. It probably would only take you about 20 minutes. Find out, how you can say, listen, not only when this theater gets your support, the whole Main Street benefits. People that come to the theater to see a show, they eat there, they shop there, they bring their children there. It's so important to think about how you can support one another. Perhaps co-sponsor an event around Small Business Saturday with programming supporting family activities like holiday movies. Maybe there's an opportunity on Small Business Saturday where that evening you can have a holiday movie at the theater to kick off, the holiday season. Maybe host a volunteer appreciation event at your historic theater with your own volunteers that help you with festivals and activities all year long. Ask your historic theater partners to donate items to a local Main Street fundraiser for a silent auction or other activities. So if you have a fundraiser, see if they'll donate some tickets for a show at a silent auction you might have, or to raffle off at a big festival. I think that would be something that would benefit both of you. Co-host an event for your city or county preservation group with a focus on promoting community landmarks. So for a lot of years, we've been talking with you all on Main Street about making sure that your landmarks are solid, that they're promoted, that you're preserving them, but not only that, that you're including them in programming. I think this is really important. As cities grow and as generations change, that we continue to kind of focus on what are your community landmarks, your post office, your schools, your courthouse, your theaters. These are things, I know I'm preaching to the choir in a lot of ways, but I don't think you should ever underestimate the power of recognition that you can give to this. Include the local home-based theater company in your festivals and give them opportunities for promotion. Let them come do a skit. A lot of our anchor theaters around the state have an anchor theater company. In fact, most do. And really think about how you're engaging them. They bring their families to things downtown. Their parents come see their plays. These are ways that you can grow economic development as well as other arts and culture. Meet with your theater's board members once a year to remind them of Main Street commitment to their downtown success. So go to those board member meetings once a year. Ask that executive director if you can come remind them who you are and what you do and why you do it and that you're in it together. I think never underestimate, again, the power of that. And always remember, I think most importantly, that their success as a historic theater increases your success in the heart of downtown and in the greater region. I kind of want to come back a little bit to the model in Swainsboro that Lynn Brinson has been working hard on in rehabilitating and reopening the Dixie Theater. Not only will that be significant for Swainsboro, but it'll be significant for the larger Emmanuel County region. And I think that was one of the reasons that the SPLOST funding was there, that the private public sector funding came through as they saw this. They saw the larger work of it. And I just don't want any of you to ever underestimate how much you can support your theater and how much your theater can support you. Finally, I'd love for you to stay in touch. Come to our grant workshops. Join us at the Fox. Let me know how things are going in your community. Just last night, I was working Hamilton and ran into Barbie outside in the arcade, and that was wonderful. I love hearing from you guys. If I can ever be of help, please let me know. That's my email and my phone number. And of course, everything that we talked about is pretty much online at foxtheater.org. Again, I want to thank Jessica for having me back today to come talk to you all. I've certainly gotten to see many of you out in the community statewide, and I'll look forward to seeing more of you at the grant workshops.
Well, thank you, Lee. One of the things that I love the most about this is just the diversity of, how these funds can be used and the different types of grants that you offer. And I just think it's so unique, especially, nowadays we always hear there aren't grants for anything, and I would say that's for the most part true, it's just not the economy that it used to be. It's a lot more competitive. But I think, what the Fox Theater Institute is doing is awesome. And I've been able to see it help lots of different theaters across the state. Toccoa, theater comes to mind immediately. And I think about them phasing stuff out and, working through that process over multiple years and talking about having that plan in place and supporting that plan. And I've just seen, some of the great things that can come from this support. So I just can't say enough good stuff about what you guys do.
Thank you.
So let's see if we have any questions. All right. Hey, Barbie. Has Hoganville contacted you about their historic theater?
Yes, actually they have, and we have funded it. As I said in my presentation, we funded the planning portion of their project, and they are able to come back to us for phase 2 for bricks and mortar funding for more planning. I think that's a project where now that they've made the decision to convert it back from a city hall into a theater, they're probably going to need more planning documents. They're probably going to need architectural drawings. They're going to need, obviously, HVAC, electrical, all those type of things. And so I imagine they'll be coming back and applying.
Are grants only available to properties that were originally built as theaters or buildings that have been rehabbed or repurposed as theaters as a new use eligible?
Right. Absolutely. They're eligible to other buildings. The example would be the Colquitt County Art Center, which I showed an example of. That was the first high school. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the first high school in Moultrie, and that is not traditionally a theater building, but it had an auditorium. And we're very open to funding historic buildings that either have an intact current use as a theater or may have a use. If all the documentation is there, all the partners are there, the building is purchased, then we would look at funding things that aren't even open yet.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to have been a historical like theater in the past. If it was maybe, like you said, a school or an auditorium that was converted to something later and, looking at repurposing it.
Yeah. So it doesn't need to be historic. It does need to be 50 years or older. But let me remind you that an equalization school now in the state of Georgia is 50 years or older. Any building built after 1968. So the elementary school that I went to in South Fulton that was built in 65
would qualify.
Yeah. So it's kind of exciting.
That is. That's interesting. Now, do you have to be like a nonprofit to apply for it, or is there any like regulation or like requirements as who can apply? Like from the city?
Absolutely. A city county government can apply. A nonprofit can apply. A private owner cannot apply.
Okay.
Now, if a private owner wants to enter into a public-private partnership with a city or county or nonprofit, if they want to go to the extreme measures to show that they have a 50 to 100-year lease on the property, if they want to set up their own 501c3 nonprofit, we would certainly be open to those discussions and dialogues. But right now, it is only for public use buildings.
Talk a little bit about the application review process, how you guys handle that, what you do.
Well, I'd say the most labor-intensive reviews are for the preservation grants, and we do have a committee of 5 professionals that look at those: 2 architects, a planner, and 1 architectural professor and a preservationist from all around the state of Georgia. And they receive the applications, they review them, we score them, we meet about them for one very long day, and they make recommendations. And beyond that, our Fox Theater Board is involved in approving those applications. So it's a multi-level approval, and we love to see strong applications with great bids, meaning we require 2 bids minimum. We like to see 3. We love to see good construction documents. We like to see really good budgets. Obviously, strong letters of support from a diverse audience, from school programming to historical societies, to local, state, and federal representative letters, to preservation nonprofits. But it's a tedious process. The application itself is very straightforward. as they would say, the waiting is the hardest part. It's it just takes quite a while. We have quite a lot of applications because, as you said, there aren't a lot of grants out there, and to be the only theater nonprofit that we know of nationwide that gives this type of money, we're increasing numbers. So the waiting is the thing. And we do some site visits as we need. If we don't always need a preemptive site visit when you submit an application, sometimes that's possible. But I would say the best way to get ahead of this is to send me an email, let me know what you're looking at for a project, but do that after you look fully at the website, look at the application, and then also join us for the grant workshop. Those are the two. That's why one of the main goals I had this year when I started FTI was to get those grant workshops up and running, because you all know, as writing these grants over the years, everything's a little different and everybody has their nuances. So that was really a big objective for me. So I hope I'll see people both in Macon and in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have, which means I take that as we answered everything very thoroughly.
Yeah.
But lots of great information. Thank you for joining us, Lee. And guys, if you have any more questions, you can obviously use this contact information here on the screen to contact Lee directly. And, we will be more than happy to share this information too with our network once these applications and stuff are ready to go.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. I wish you all a happy Preservation Month.
Yay!
And celebrating with you statewide, as always, is just it's an honor. So I hope to see you out and about.
Yep. Thank you, Lee.